This is our new weekly segment that we'll bring to you each day after the Saints play every game this season. Our four biggest takeaways this week, obviously, in Seattle. Alvin Kamara was the unquestioned superstar of the Saints' trip to the Pacific Northwest. He finished this game with 161 all-purpose yards with 2 touchdowns on 25 touches. That's the most touches that Kamara has ever had in a game that ended in regulation. And how about this stat? When Kamara touches the ball 20 or more times on offense, the Saints all-time are 8-0. But why are those 25 touches important? Well, since the Saints were playing with backup QB in Teddy Bridgewater, Sean Payton wanted to make him feel as comfortable as possible. And how do you do that? Well, you create easy throws for your quarterback. In fact, 9 of Teddy's 19 completions were to Kamara. That makes up 47% of his completions. My second biggest takeaway, Cam Jordan and the rest of the Saints defensive line had a field day. Jordan logged 11 hurries yesterday against Seattle. That was the most by any NFL player this season. He currently has 16 hurries this year. That leads the NFL. By the way, the Saints' other defensive end, Marcus Davenport, the most picked-apart Saint on the roster, he also had a solid outing in Seattle, and he has 10 hurries on the year. That's tied for 10th in the league. That's pretty solid. My third takeaway, the Saints' special teams were pretty special. Punters, they don't get enough love, but Thomas Morstead deserves it. Morstead had punts of 64, 53, and 58 yards, and all of those punts pinned Seattle inside their own 10-yard line, and 2 of them inside their own 4. Huge field position kicks. And of course, the massive punt return from Deontay Harris from 53 yards out to get the Saints on the board before Teddy Bridgewater even touched the ball. He did have a muffed punt, but luckily that didn't cost the Saints any points. And finally, my fourth takeaway, the Seattle Seahawks constantly shot themselves in the foot and just had bad coaching from Pete Carroll. The Seahawks were down 13 just before the half with more than 20 seconds left on the clock and had 2 timeouts. And yet, Carroll did not elect to use one of them. The next play, Russell Wilson threw a perfect 54-yard ball to DK Metcalf that had them in field goal range, but time expired, and the Seahawks went to the break with 2 timeouts unused. Then the Saints' first drive out of the break on a 53-yarder that was no good from Will Lutz, former Saint Al Woods was covering the long snapper. That was flagged and extended the drive, and later in the series, Bridgewater would hook up with Mike Thomas to stretch their lead to 20. So the Saints were given their breaks, but they were also playing with a backup QB, so that handicapped it for both teams. Regardless, the Saints won in one of the toughest environments in football and returned to New Orleans with much better expectations for life without Drew Brees.